Hello there, welcome to library training. My name is Eric and I'm one of the librarians at Goshen College. In this session, we are going to cover more advanced nursing techniques for nursing. We're going to particularly look at how to develop keywords. And then once we have our keywords, how to narrow or broaden a search. I want us to begin with developing keywords. And I think the best way to start is with the clinical question that we have developed. And so this chart in front of me gives me the outline of a PICO question. What I really like about this chart that we have in front of us is that it functions in a circle. I think that's really important when we're considering how a question works, especially a research question. We often think that we want to start with the patient and problem and then just kind of go down the list, right? PICOT. But in reality, in this circle, we are always going back to the beginning as we think through each of these pieces and refining it along the way. I like to think of research as this ongoing pursuit, kind of looking at each piece and evaluating how that's going to work. So on this next slide, it's just an overview of what the PICO formula looks like. This may be a review for you, but if it isn't, I just want to give a real quick introduction. The P is going to be a patient, problem, or population that's going to be addressed. I is the intervention or exposure being considered. C is a comparison if there happens to be one. And O is the outcomes. And sometimes with this, you'll also see a T, which could be timeline. So knowing that and seeing kind of that circle of how a PICO can be approached, let's look at a research question. Throughout this library training, we're going to work through two different research questions. One I consider more to be a textbook question, and one is a real life question. So I want to show kind of how the textbook might say it and when you might have something more in practice. So here's the textbook question. In adult patients with kidney failure receiving scheduled hemodialysis treatments, how does the use of monthly individualized educational sessions regarding dietary adherence compared to group educational sessions affect a patient's fluid gain between scheduled treatments? The first thing I want to consider for a literature review of a PICO question is the intervention. So I'm going to have a question for you I'd like you to answer. Which part of this question is the intervention? All right, good job. The use of monthly individualized educational sessions regarding dietary adherence. Say that 3 times fast. Our next step is going to be when we have a research question like this, is to figure out how to best convert this into search terms. When you're doing a search, you really want to limit to 4 to 6 search terms. If you have too few, your results are going to be pretty vague if you just searched for hemodialysis, for example. And if you're too narrow, if you have all these terms, you might not get any results at all. So we really want to hit that sweet spot. Something I like to do when I have a question like this is to start underlining the keyword for each PICO element and then limit that down to 4 or 6. The second thing I like to think through is evaluating what the bottleneck terms are. So these are the terms I have to have in this search to pull up what I need. What are those things that are most critical? And then the third piece is, when you have a PICO question in particular, that intervention seems to be the most key piece, and that tends to be the bottleneck of things you have to have. So really thinking through, that's what I need, that's that term. I might not need the population, but I might need the intervention. So thinking through these things, let's take a look at this list, and I have a question for you. I'm going to give you a list of possible keywords. Which one should we not include in this search? That's correct. Adult patients. We should not include this because it's a very broad term, and most literature will kind of give the term implicitly unless you're, in terms of population, unless you're referring to seniors or children or another very particular population. So you can see here, these are the terms that I underlined. For a search, I underline hemodialysis treatments, individualized education, and diet. So those are really the pieces I want to think through. Those are going to be the terms that I'm going to search once I go looking for materials. Now let's look at this term, the more real-life example. This PICO is oxygen weaning for hospitalized patients, not ventilator associated. You can see it's a lot shorter. Again, I want us to think through the questions that I asked already. So I have these, this question, and I have 4 to 6 terms I'll need to search for. And that's not going to be a problem with this. But again, I want to ask through the question here, what are the bottlenecks? And what is the intervention listed? Also, when you have a question like this, just because not all the PICO elements are listed doesn't mean that they're either not implied or that this is. We're not going to be able to do a literature review with that. So thinking through this bottleneck, what's the bottleneck here? The key one is going to be not ventilator and oxygen weaning. If you look here, I underlined the word weaning, and the oxygen weaning is going to be key. Also, I have not ventilator, which that's going to be very key. And you can see I also added in some of the other PICO elements that weren't explicitly written, but they could be implied. So we see there's no comparison. We see the outcome implied as successful weaning, and there's not a given timeline. The next thing that I want us to look at before we start doing some test searches is Boolean operators. When you do a search in a database like CINAHL, you may see on the left-hand side terms that say and or not. So what are these terms and what do they mean? So I want to give you 3 visuals to see how this works. And here's the first visual here. If you use the word and, that's going to look for articles that contain both terms or multiple terms. So anytime you put a whole group of words together, it's going to put an and in between each one individually, and it's going to see, it's going to find resources that have both, or if there's additional terms, those terms together in a search. The second example is the word or. Or is going to look at articles that have any of the terms listed. And this is great if you have similar terms or synonyms that you want to find things that use both terminologies. Then the last one is not. Not's going to exclude any one term that you have. So let's walk through both of these PICO questions, and then let's go see how these things turn out in CINAHL. So I am here now at the Goshen College Library website. This is libraryguides.goshen.edu. And let's go into the CINAHL database. So to do that, you go to our library website. You can simply Google our Goshen College Library website, or go to libraryguides.goshen.edu and then click on the green CINAHL button and log in. So I want you to open a new browser tab or window and do that, and let me know once you are there and logged in. Okay, so let's look at the first PICO question we had, and I'm going to put in our search terms that we have underlined. So I'm going to put in hemodialysis, individual, education, diet. Okay, so I have those are my underlined terms, and I put them in that first search box. My first question for you is, what Boolean operator would I use? And to group these together if I have these and or not. Okay, that's right. I want to search all these terms, so I'm going to use the word and it would do it automatically in this one box, but I want to separate these out to show you some pieces for some of our advanced searches. So I'm going to put in individual here, I'm going to put in education here. I'm going to click on add fields, and I'm going to put in diet, and then I'm going to separate those 4 out. It might seem a little silly to separate those into 4 boxes, but as we work through our search, you'll see how helpful this can be as we do more search building with that. So once we have those terms here, we'll do our search and we'll build these out. So here, and then do my result. And you can see there in the search box, it just separated them out in one search. Okay, now I'm going to do I'm going to open another tab with the library website and going into CINAHL. And I'm going to do a search for our second PICO question with the terms that we had underlined. So we had oxygen weaning, not ventilator. Okay, so we put those in the search box here. What would be a Boolean operator I would use to identify articles that do not contain a term? Okay, this was pretty straightforward. Here is the word not that we already had listed that was in the PICO. So we can use the word not here as a separator and then simply put that in here. And with the word not, it would have done that automatically. And then we have this, and then we'll do our search. And again, click on the search button, and you can see our results here. So that was kind of our first stab at having some search results and doing the initial step using the Boolean operators. All right, I moved back to our first tab here, our first PICO question. And now, so you saw how we used the word and you saw how we used the word not. Now I want to show you how we would use the word or. So I'm going to click back on advanced search. That will take us back to our separated search boxes. And you can see how or could be helpful. So for any term, instead of course, there's the or option here, but if you take a term and you put in the word or beside it, it's going to give you a list of other terms that you can search for. So you can see here in the first drop down, you can see individual or person or people, individual or group, and now it's not what we want. We truly want individual. So we can see individual or personal, so that might be the best, right? Or we could say individual or person or personal. We really want to get at just one, not a group. So you can see that, and you can do these for each of these, right? So you can see like education or school or learning. So it could be like the same diet or nutrition. And you can do those searches with the word or, and then when you go ahead and do your search, you can see that it will broaden our results more to what we had before. Sometimes, if we have fewer results, we can broaden the results by going for a more broad term. So I'm back at the oxygen weaning, not ventilator search here. And I want us to brainstorm initially of how we can use a more broad term. One of these could be with the oxygen weaning, we could just search weaning would be an option. And then if we look at the word ventilator, we could think of what are ways that we could maybe do a more broad search. And you might be stumped. I look at this and my initial thought when I got this question was, I don't know. But there's a tool in CINAHL that you can use that helps you brainstorm this. If you click on advanced search, I'm going to use the CINAHL headings as an example for how I could do this. So I'm going to click on CINAHL headings, and I'm going to do a search for oxygen weaning. And you can see here the types of results that we had. Now, infant weaning is not the type of topic that we want, and ventilator weaning is our second result here. Now, initially, we're talking about weaning that is not attached to a ventilator. But if you click on this term, I want to show you an idea that you can think more broadly. So if I click on ventilator weaning, this provides me with a definition of the term. And then if you scroll down, it gives me this tree, and it's going to show me either more broad or more narrow searches. So you can see that we have here this hierarchy. So take a look here, and what would be a more broad term that would be helpful for your search? Okay, good job. This was a bit of a trick question, so you may have gotten this wrong, and that's okay. So you could see that there's this respiration artificial, which might be what we would think of as a helpful broader term. And it could be, although that might often still include a lot of pieces with a ventilator. So I would think even going back to respiratory therapy, kind of going back even more broad, and using this as a term. And so when you click on this, on the side, you can click on this term to have the term, and then you scroll up here and click Add to Search, and then you can conduct your search with that. We have a video, if you're interested, exclusively on how to use Sentinel headings, and I'll show you a link to that. But I'm going to take this, I'm going to have my terms here. I'm also going to make this a little more broad, and so I'm just going to have weaning instead of oxygen weaning. And then I have my search here, and I'm going to do my search, and then let's look at the results we have here. So you can see by doing that, I moved to 531 results. So by taking a broader concept, I was able to look at a larger set of results. The next piece or search tool that you can use is what's called truncation or wildcard. A truncation or wildcard will search anything at the end of a term that has various endings. So for example, if you had the word nutrition, it would and you put a wildcard, it would search nutrition and nutritional. Or if you had the word learn, it would search learn and learning. So these wildcards or truncations can be really helpful to be able to expand your search to terms that might not be, that you might not have originally. And so to do that, click back on Advanced Search so we can see our piece here. And let's look at diet or nutrition and how we could do this here. So in the Sentinel database, you will use an asterisk at the end of a term to make it a wildcard. So you would see here, for diet, it would be like diet or dietary, for example. And for nutrition, you do the same thing. It'd be nutrition or nutritional. Again, for like education, it'd be education or educational. And you could think through some of these pieces. I'll just do 3 of those. And let's see how our results change doing the truncation. So you can see it expanded our results a little bit. Not a lot, but it's a way to kind of think through this. So let's now look at our other term, weaning, this term here, and take a look at these terms and what words could we truncate or put a wildcard here. Okay, that's right. We could do that for weaning or ventilator. So we could do wean, or we could even do vents. And we could do that search there, and you can see how that's going to expand our search. You can see the wean and then the weaning there. However, so you may notice that our search results actually got smaller when we did this truncation. And you may be thinking, what happened here? And the reason for that is because we did this truncation for the word ventilator. And so we also expanded our search for more articles that included wean, weaning, etc., but we also excluded more articles that had the word ventilator, which is exactly what we want for this search. You really want everything that doesn't have the word ventilator. So you can see it's important to think through those truncations and to be careful with them. The last thing I want to point out to you are the filters on these databases. I want to say a few things here. One is to do these last and to be very careful, or maybe even avoid some of these filters. They're not always going to give you exactly what you want. You can see search filters right below the top search box. So the first one I want to highlight is the time limiter. So this first one, when you click on all time, it's going to give you the opportunity to limit to past 12 months, past 5 years, or past 10 years. You can also do a more advanced date range through the all filters. The second one is peer reviewed, and this will limit to scholarly journals. And then you can limit to full text or source type as well. If you click on all filters, it's going to limit using additional options. So you can see some of these are already on the top list here, but you could see one of the limit just to English language, for example, or limit to a particular custom range publication date. And some of these other ones, and unfortunately they're hiding behind my face here, would be pieces of like kind of your population, like age, gender, geography, etc. So they can be helpful in that piece, thinking through this. I again want to reiterate though that sometimes they over limit and they exclude things that you really don't want to. So use them sparingly or try them and go kind of back and forth. I'm going to have a follow-up activity for you to complete to do a little bit of these advanced searches on your own. Once again, as you have any questions, especially with these more complicated pieces, reach out to me. And you can do that by contacting me at library@goshen.edu. So it's great to work with you, and I hope to work with you again in the future.